A man armed with a bow and arrow killed 5 people and wounded 2 others in the Norwegian town of Kongsberg during a series of attacks on Wednesday. That's according to local police chief Oyvind Aas.
I can unfortunately confirm that 5 people have been killed and 2 are injured. One of the injured is a police officer who was in the store off duty where the incident happened. He is now in the hospital, as is the other injured person.
Aas said a male suspect was apprehended and that it was too early to know the intentions behind the attack. Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg said police were investigating if it was an act of terror.
I want to underline that if it's terror-related, we don't know if it's a political attack that has taken place. The police will have to investigate that.
Following the attacks, the police directorate said it had ordered officers nationwide to carry firearms as a precaution. It added there was no change to the national threat level so far. Norwegian police are normally unarmed, but officers have access to guns and rifles when needed. Wednesday's attack was the worst in Norway since 2011, when a far-right extremist killed 77 people, mostly teens at a youth camp.
Right now, this is our best chance, and it may be our last chance to understand the origins of this virus.
The World Health Organization announced the creation of a newly formed group Wednesday that it called its last chance to determine the origins of COVID-19 and urged China to cooperate. The question of where and how the coronavirus came to be has become a highly volatile issue and a particularly touchy topic for China, where the first cases emerged in late 2019. Mike Ryan, WHO's head of emergencies program, urged calm amid a renewed bid for answers.
That is a human endeavor to understand a virus that has stopped our whole world. And I would ask everyone, countries, journalists, and everybody else, to create a little space for that discussion to happen.
A WHO-led team spent 4 weeks in and around Wuhan, China earlier this year with Chinese scientists probing the earliest known cases of the coronavirus, and said in a joint report in March that the virus had probably been transmitted from bats to humans through another animal, but further research was needed. WHO Director Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said that the investigation was hampered by a lack of raw data and has called for lab audits. China has repeatedly dismissed theories that the virus leaked from one of its laboratories and has said no more visits are needed. But the WHO believes otherwise.
And we very much hope that there will be further missions to China and other countries.
In an editorial in the journal Science, the WHO said that detailed investigations of the earliest known and suspected cases in China prior to December of 2019 were still needed, including analyses of stored blood samples from 2019 in Wuhan. Chen Xu, China's ambassador to the UN, noted that international teams had been sent to China twice already, and that, quote, it is time to send teams to other places.
The U.S. Supreme Court on Wednesday appeared to lean toward reinstating convicted Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev's death sentence. Tsarnaev and his brother Tamerlan set off 2 homemade bombs at the marathon's finish line in 2013 that killed 3 people and injured hundreds of others, and days later killed a police officer. Tamerlan Tsarnaev died after a gunfight with police. The 9-member court's conservative majority appeared sympathetic toward the Justice Department's effort to overturn a lower court ruling that tossed out the sentence.
After watching video of respondent by himself personally placing a shrapnel bomb behind a group of children at the Boston Marathon, the jury in this case returned a nuanced verdict unanimously recommending capital punishment for that specific, deliberate act.
On Wednesday, Tsarnaev's lawyer focused on whether the trial judge improperly excluded evidence of a separate triple murder from 2011 relating to Tsarnaev's older brother Tamerlan. Lawyers for Dzhokhar, who is 28 now and was 19 at the time of the attack, have argued that the other crime could illustrate their main argument, that he played a secondary role in the bombing to his brother Tamerlan, who they describe as an authority figure.
The evidence's exclusion distorted the penalty phase here by enabling the government to present a deeply misleading account of the key issues of influence and leadership.
But the court's conservative majority appeared unconvinced that the judge had erred, though the 3 liberal justices asked tough questions. No federal inmates had been executed for 17 years before Trump oversaw 13 executions in the last 6 months of his term.
Can I be nosy? What did you?
Yes, I'm sorry. Very unusual to receive a note while I'm up here. IATSE workers, 60,000 workers I mentioned, in film and television just announced that they are going on strike on Monday, regardless of, they have this window to make progress at the bargaining table, but if they don't, they are going on strike on Monday.
Okay,
so you heard it here.
During an interview at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, the president of the AFL-CIO, a major U.S. federation of unions, was briefly interrupted to announce that behind-the-scenes workers on Hollywood films and television shows will launch a major nationwide strike on Monday if they don't make progress at the bargaining table. The work stoppage threatens to devastate major studios if the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, or IATSE members, follow through with their planned strike, which would come not long after most sets resumed filming following health crisis shutdowns. AFL-CIO President Liz Schuler said she'd stand with the many off-screen employees.
This will be, one of the largest work stoppages that most of the country will take notice on, right? And of course, we talked about, the snacks getting us through the pandemic.
Right.
Film and television has been a baseline for most people, and these are the people that actually make that content happen. So we will stand with them in solidarity. We will use the full breadth and power of the labor movement to make sure that these companies are feeling the pain.
Last week, 90% of IATSE members cast their ballots, with nearly all of those votes in favor of authorizing a strike. The union wants to reduce working hours that can be as much as 14 hours a day, as demand for content has increased, particularly for streaming platforms. In the hopes of reaching an agreement on a new contract before the Monday deadline, the union will continue bargaining with producers this week on issues such as reasonable rest periods, meal breaks, and pay increases for those at the bottom of the wage scale.
A rally by the tech titans drove the S&P 500 and Nasdaq higher Wednesday, but weakness in financial stocks put a damper on the Dow. On Wall Street, the Dow closed flat. The S&P 500 added nearly 0.33%. The Nasdaq rose almost 0.75%. Gerber Kawasaki CEO Ross Gerber said investors snapped up big-cap tech stocks in anticipation of strong profit growth.
We have earnings coming into play, and clearly technology is going to have blowout numbers, and they're not affected by supply chain shortages and inflation like traditional businesses.
And there were more signs of inflation Wednesday. A Labor Department report showed consumer prices rose solidly in September, and investors are anticipating that inflation is poised to rise further. Shares of J.P. Morgan Chase declined, even though the big U.S. bank reported a 24% jump in quarterly profit. A surge in deal-making activity and the release of additional reserves set aside for bad loans pumped up the bottom line. Apple shares fell. A media report said the iPhone maker plans to cut production of its iPhone 13. And shares of Delta Airlines flew south. The carrier warned that the sharp spike in fuel prices could result in a quarterly pre-tax loss.